Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, aka Hank Jimspiration, and this video we're breaking down episode 3 of Marvel's What If. The entry massively changes up the MCU and features the death of some of our favourite Phase 1 characters before they could go on to become legends. It's got a big twist, and after the last 3 episodes ended with cliffhangers, it does seem like this season might end up being all connected. Now in this video, we're going to be breaking down the Easter eggs, hidden details, things you missed, yes you, and also giving our thoughts on what could be happening in the series. Now the episode takes place across the week that Iron Man 2, Thor, and the Incredible Hulk happened. This was a very pivotal moment in the timeline, as it was the point in which several events all happened, and it's arguably the most important week in the MCU. We start off with the title screen, which we broke down in our episode 1 video in case you want to check it out. This episode probably has the biggest names that have featured in the series so far, and we get vocal performances from Samuel L. Jackson, Jeremy Renner, Mark Ruffalo, Tom Hiddleston, Clark Gregg, Frank Grillo, and Jamie Alexander. Interestingly, in The Incredible Hulk, Bruce Banner was of course played by Edward Norton, and this what if scenario recasts him as the MCU mainstay Mark Ruffalo to kind of keep him more in line with the continuity. The episode kickstarts with a big title screen that says Monday, implementing this idea of a week, and it runs all the way up to Friday. The episode culminates with us getting what could be a weekend game, as different heroes are brought together to form an alternate version of the Avengers. Now it is possible that this title screen is referencing the movie 7 starring Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman, as that took place over the space of a week and had title cards denoting each day. Nick Fury starts off his infamous Avengers speech by saying there was an idea. This featured in the Avengers film, and it was later repurposed for the Infinity War trailer. It was actually used in the description of that trailer, and it starts off one of the most infamous speeches in the MCU. However, it's cut short by Black Widow, who has clearly heard it several times before. We are currently set in the time period of Iron Man 2, and we see Tony sitting inside a giant donut, mirroring the moment from that movie in which the same thing happened. Stark is currently suffering from palladium poisoning due to the arc reactor being toxic. It's also possible that he was overloaded with it at the end of the first Iron Man movie, as when Pepper set the reactor to blow, she pushed a button that released a lot of palladium gas. This is in the aftermath of his fight with Rhodey, and though the lines that Nick says to him are identical to what he says in Iron Man 2, we get to see things just before this scene from another perspective. Nat has her hang-ups over recruiting Stark to save the world, but Fury reminds her that he also recruited a Russian spy, and that the team is pretty much going to be made up of misfits. I was actually kinda hoping Rhodey would show up at the end of the movie to be part of the new Avengers, as at this point in Iron Man 2, he does have the War Machine armor. Now moving on from that, the animators perfectly recapture the feeling and look of this scene from the movie. Everything in the diner, even down to the veins in Stark's neck, looks identical, and it does a great job of reminding us how much attention to detail that Marvel are paying. Stark lowers his glasses, much in the same way that Howard did in the first Avenger, and Black Widow approaches him, believing that she's applying a curant to his neck. Playing these moments on top of one another, you can see how well they line up, but a big change comes when we realize that Tony has been injected with a lethal dose that has killed him. The Watcher narrates the concept of the entry, and we see several shots from Iron Man 2, including the mirror one and when the character fought Whiplash. The Watcher describes Stark as being a genius who battled his demons both inside and out, and this is referencing the fact that Iron Man 2 gave some nods to the seminal Tony Stark comic Demon in a Bottle. He's a demon in a bottle, gotta rub in the right way now. He describes the Hulk as being a monster hiding in a man, and also refers to Thor as a godly prince who fell to earth. We also get some shots of the Avengers film, namely the Chitauri attacking Hawkeye and Black Widow, as well as Hulk going smash on Loki like how he did in Stark Tower. We get the Avengers money shot, and this has actually been referenced in the What If trailer, but rather than having the classic Avengers, we get what I believe is Killmonger, Thanos Gamora, TChalla Star-Lord, and Party Thor. This makes me believe that we'll be getting a multiversal team up at the end of the season, but I'll talk about that later on in the video. Cut to a scene that appeared both in Thor and in the post-credit scene of Iron Man 2. We start with a close-up of the hammer before joining Agent Coulson, who has arrived at the scene to alert Fury that it's been found. Black Widow is now being blamed for the murder of Tony, and she's being escorted by Crossbones and Jack Rollins, two characters that were big parts of Captain America the Winter Soldier. Crossbones mentions Pierce, aka Alexander Pierce, who at this time was of course the head of S.H.I.E.L.D. He was also a Hydra agent, And though he doesn't show up in this entry, I love how the episode keeps throwing things to us like this whilst we try to get to the bottom of who's killing the Avengers. Fury knows it wasn't Widow, but due to her being an ex-Russian agent, S.H.I.E.L.D. of course suspects her. He tasks her with getting to the bottom of it, and she's escorted by the Hydra agents in a scene that sort of feels reminiscent to the elevator one in The Winter Soldier. Might be a bit of a reach, but both are in small metal containers and completely kicking the crap out of everyone else. Now, due to the changes in the timeline, Nick Fury is now attending the Mjolnir crash site alongside Hawkeye. We last saw the pair together at the end of the Captain Carter episode, and because of the post-credit scene of Thor, we know that in the main timeline that he was at Project Pegasus at this point, rather than in the desert. Because Coulson isn't the one overseeing the operation, he works the perimeter and discovers that Thor has been smashing people's heads in like you should smash that like button. Also yeah, whilst you're here, don't forget to subscribe as we're doing big breakdowns on the show every week, and I'll also give you a tenner when I become a billionaire. That's a bloody promise. Soon as I'm a billionaire, you are rich as well. Now I love the way that Coulson sort of gets fanny flutters over Thor and also his hair. Often in the MCU, people have said that he's a bloody handsome bloke, and Infinity War we of course saw as the Guardians stood around him saying that he looked like an angel. This happened whilst he lay on a slab, and it's sort of mirrored in this episode in the following scene when Coulson and Fury stand around sniffing him. Bit weird. Now Hawkeye goes to the bird's nest and starts to stalk him with a bow and arrow. However, something makes him release the arrow and Thor is killed. This might actually be a nod to Civil War 2, and in that comic book storyline, Hawkeye actually killed the Hulk and got put on trial because of it. Now because of this, we learn that Loki gets control of the throne, and in Thor's solo movie, he of course stopped this before it could happen. Hawkeye is killed, and initially Coulson suspects that he took a cyanide capsule. However, Fury brings up his wife and kids, who were of course introduced in Age of Ultron. Hawkeye downplayed having them, and even said that he didn't have a girlfriend early on in the film, but we discover the truth later on. Fury was actually one of the only people that knew, and that's why he went to Clint's home at one point in the film and broke bread with the family. Guy broke bread and shit. Now Coulson asks if Nick has any idea who's behind it all, and he hilariously says there was an idea, which, yeah, nice bit of dialogue. Cut to Wednesday and the Culver University in Virginia. This is a location that we were introduced to in The Incredible Hulk, and we learned that it's where Bruce carried out the majority of his experiments. The university has several cameos there, including one by Lou Ferrigno, who of course played the Jolly Green Giant in the 70s TV show. We also caught a young scientist who you might recognise as being the person who would go on to become Peter's science teacher in Spider-Man Homecoming. In addition to this, it also appeared in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., showing that it's all connected. Now we catch Betty Ross carrying some books, and the colours of these are purple and green, which are of course the colour schemes that the Incredible Hulk uses. One is for microbiology, and both she and Bruce were of course studying ways to unlock untapped potential within the human body that would basically replicate the super soldier serum. They do a bit of retconning here to show that Widow and Ross have met before, but I can't remember them meeting in the MCU, which is either because it didn't happen or it's because I sat up all night downing 19 cans of Red Bull so I could get this video out 15 minutes after the episode airs. Together the pair look over the syringe, and we learn that a tiny projectile, perhaps based on nanotech, is what killed Stark. This is one of the major clues that it was actually Hank Pym behind it, which the episode eventually reveals. Widow notices the Stanley Pizza Parlor uniform, and this is of course what Bruce used to sneak into the university with. I always thought that with the restaurant being called Stan Lee's, and also the fact that it was an old guy running it, that it would have been the perfect cameo for Stan Lee, but for whatever reason they decided to get another old white-haired dude instead. No idea why, but I'm sure someone out there knows, so leave it in the comments below. Now Fury rings her and tells her that Hawkeye is dead, and the former has realised that all of the people being murdered are connected to the Avengers Initiative. Also yeah, whilst we're nitpicking the MCU, back when Endgame came out, yeah, I called Hawkeye Mo Hawkeye because of his haircut. It never caught on, and I've been furious about it since then. Now she finds Bruce, I'm still angry. Now she finds Bruce hiding behind a big green door, and this could be a nod to the Incredible Hulk comic, namely Immortal Hulk, in which the passage between Hell and the normal world was accessible to the Hulk through a literal green door. Could be a reach, but Bruce steps out and says that violence probably isn't going to work out for anyone, and this is a nod to when he and Nat met in the Avengers. Nat pretended to go to him by herself, and he warned her that if she tried to take him in forcibly, that it probably wouldn't work out for her. I actually love seeing Ruffalo in this role, and it's nice that both Betty and Widow are both in the scene, as they were of course love interests for the character. Interestingly, Veronica, the satellite that held the Hulkbuster, was named that as a nod to Betty and Veronica from Archie Comics. Also, huge apologies to my editor Christian at Beyond Epic for having to edit me going off into these constant Easter egg side tangents. I'm sorry, bro. Now, in the desert, we see Loki coming down through the Bifrost. This is actually right near where Thor landed in the opening of the 2011 movie. He has brought with him the Asgardian army, and amongst them we can see the Destroyer, which of course wasn't destroyed by Thor like it was in his solo film. The Warriors 3 and Lady Sif are alongside Loki, and they didn't go to Earth because of the events changing. Loki introduces himself as the Crown Prince of Asgard, which was the position that belonged to Thor. Loki seeks vengeance for his brother's death, and he ends up unleashing the Casket of Ancient Winters from Thor. I remember back in the day there was a lot of confusion over whether this was the Tesseract or not, and seeing it unleashed here brought back memories of arguing with people on the internet over why it was a different thing. Ah, my childhood. Now we see that Nat is ringing Fury, and cut to her escorting Bruce across the bridge, which was a big set piece in the Incredible Hulk. General Ross arrives, but strangely Emil Blonsky isn't with him, who was of course the Abomination. Bruce is put in the crosshairs, and you might notice that he's also wearing a denim blue shirt over a white tee, which is what the character had on in his solo film. The Hulk explodes internally, and I guess that answers the age-old question of what would happen if Ant-Man shut up Thanos' butthole. Fury offers Loki a compromise and says that they should work together to find his brother's killer. Loki gives him until the sun rises in Midgard to track this person down, and it just puts a deadline on the final act. Across the state, we see Nat attempting to get to the bottom of it by accessing Coulson's files, and he gives her his password, which is #SteveSteveSteve iHotSteve0704. Now, not only is this because we found out in the Avengers that Coulson loves Captain America, but the numbers themselves also hold a special meaning. In the first Avenger on Cap's enlistment form, we discovered that his birthday was actually the 4th of July, so the 0704 is Coulson putting in the American way to write someone's date of birth at the end. Nat can't shake the feeling that she's being watched, and we do get some foreshadowing here that Hank is involved when she pulls up the names of those involved in the admin folder. Amongst them we can see Coulson, Fury, Maria Hill, Alexander Pierce, and Janet Van Dyne, aka Hank's wife, who is thought to be deceased. X marks the spot as always, and the big line through her profile pic hints towards us that everything is connected to her in some way. I'm not going to say it's all connected. Now, she turns out, yeah, she accessed the database the day before, even though she was dead, and although she is still alive. And Widow is killed by Hank as he mercilessly beats the crap out of her. Now, not to make light on men hitting women, which is obviously something that dudes shouldn't do, but we have seen this characteristic from Hank before. One of the most controversial moments in comic book history happened when he was in the Yellow Jacket costume and he beat his wife. It was later explained away as being the Pym particles that changed his personality, and this idea could also lend itself to the reveal in the final act. In her dying words, she screams out that it's all about Hope, aka Hank's daughter, and we cut to Fury in a diner without her and Stark, which mirrors the beginning of the episode and shows how much he's lost. Coulson reminds him that the Avengers were put in place to fight threats like Loki, and they would of course go against him in their first team-up movie. Fury returns to his car, and from the glove box he takes out Captain Marvel's beeper, which he of course had during the post-credit scene of Infinity War. Rather than pulling it out of that in a glove box though, he had it in a big bag, and I love how there's this idea that he always has it with him just in case something big kicks off. He goes to Loki, who has transformed the desert into a Jotunheim-like area completely frozen in ice. This is because Loki is of course a frost giant, and thus it would feel more like home to him. Loki disguised as Fury visits Hope's grave, and this is where he's approached by Hank, voiced by Michael Douglas. It's revealed that Hope died during a mission in the Odessa, Ukraine, and this could be something that we have heard about in the MCU. We discovered that when Nat escorted an engineer out of Iran that she was attacked by the Winter Soldier. He forced their vehicle off a cliff, and though Nat managed to climb out with the engineer, Bucky shot Nat through the stomach and killed him. Now it is possible that with Hank becoming the Yellow Jacket in this timeline, that his daughter had an even more estranged relationship with him, and that she joined S.H.I.E.L.D. and went out on this mission. Perhaps the Winter Soldier murdered her, and thus Hank laid the blame at S.H.I.E.L.D.'s feet. Going into full Reach Richards persona, if the Winter Soldier did kill Hope, then he would fully blame S.H.I.E.L.D. because Bucky was of course a Hydra agent working for them. Now we see Hank carrying out the murders, and I'll be honest, I've watched this episode a couple of times, and the twist, it doesn't really work for me. I don't know why Hank would care about murdering the Avengers that had nothing to do with his daughter, and personally I think that he would just go after Fury rather than killing people that he might have recruited. Let's be honest, at this point they weren't even the Avengers, so it's a bit weird to me that Hank would care about people completely disconnected from the organisation that Fury was thinking about getting on board with. The pair then duke it out, and it's revealed that Fury is actually Loki. The latter replicates himself and stands around Hank laughing, which the character also did at the end of Thor. Now they managed to stop Hank, but in doing this it ushers in something far worse. Think of killing He Who Remains and getting Kang instead, and you get the idea. Loki refuses to leave Earth and decides to rule over Midgard, which he of course wanted to do in the Avengers. He attends the United Nations and speaks out over the world to say that he will now be taking over everything. He says that humans crave subjugation, a direct quote from the Avengers when he was talking about how we were made to be ruled. We watch as the Avengers coffins line a hangar, and Fury steps forward with his next steps in the plan. He visits the Captain America crash site and wipes away the snow from the front of the shield, which is of course pulling directly from the imagery of the first Avenger. He says "Welcome back, Captain," and turns around to see that Captain Marvel has arrived, much in the same way that she showed up in the post-credits scene of her solo movie. Rather than saying "Where's Fury" though, she now says "Where's the fight?" and we end with the fate of the world up in the air. Now every episode so far has ended with a cliffhanger, and it could be teasing what's to come. In the trailer for What If, we have seen several of the characters joined together in one timeline, and we know from the teaser that at some point Doctor Strange meets with Captain Carter. I believe that he will be getting characters from different universes and possibly pulling them all together into one timeline to save it. The constant cliffhangers definitely hint towards that, and who knows, we might see Captain Marvel and America from this Earth popping up further down the line. Now as for this episode, I think it was pretty good on the whole. I was just a bit unsure on the twist, and out of the three, it's probably my least favourite. Though this time period is one of the most important ones in the MCU, it's also a time period that I don't really rate that highly, and Iron Man 2, The Incredible Hulk and Thor are probably the bottom of my list when it comes to ranking the films. Yes, I prefer Dark World over Thor 1. I think this kinda didn't really get going to the extent I was hoping, and though the mystery was good, I just thought the payoff was a bit meh. When Tony died, my first thought was that it would be Ant-Man related, so I didn't really see it as being that big of a twist, and when Black Widow came across Janet, I knew exactly what was going on, because I'm a goddamn genius. Yeah, it was pretty obvious, wasn't it? All that being said though, it's still a pretty fun episode, just probably the weakest out of the three for me. I think ranking them so far, I'd go TChalla, Captain Carter, then this, though I'm sure people have their differing opinions. Now I was lucky enough to get early access to the first three, but from this point onwards, I'm going in as blind as you are. Because of this, the videos might come a bit later next week, but rest assured I'll get them out on Wednesday at some point. Before then though, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the episode, so make sure you comment below and let me know. We're running a competition right now and giving away 3 MCU box sets on the 30th of August, and all you have to do to be on with a chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the episode. You pick the comments at random at the end of the month, and the winners of the last one are on screen right now, so message me at Heavy Spoilers if that's you. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer. I'm actually recording this the last Wednesday, and I'm hoping that it's been released. If it's not though, yeah, I'm sorry for letting you down. I've put another Marvel video on screen right now that is just as good, I promise you. Might not be the trailer, or it might, and let's just see. With that out of the way, thank you for sitting through the video. I've been Paul, I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.